Hello everybody, this is Monster. So, recently, a Discord user named Trez reached out to me about my item elevator concept design from a video I made a year ago. That design utilized a phenomenon when items are squished by a block, they will pop out. If you surround all sides of that block, then they will only pop upwards. So I made an item elevator based off of that concept that crushed blocks in an upward succession to elevate them vertically. And it was buggy. It works, but not all the time. The reason Trez reached out to me is because he wanted to know why it was buggy, and he looked in the code and he found basically when an item is being suffocated, it's suddenly given a random velocity, and if the values are just right, it can get stuck in the block or a nearby block. And that's what was happening. So it's not 100% reliable. It's buggy and it didn't really work. So I thought, hey, well, maybe I should design an item elevator that works 100% of the time. And that's what I set out to do. But it ended up being way more complicated than it should have been. I have several designs over here. About half of them work as they should. This was my first completed design here. It's 4x4. I wanted it to be compressed. It's a little expensive. And it works. I'm going to throw my items down there. And then we activate it from the back. It's very loud, but if you didn't see how that worked, it's like an elevator. It kind of utilizes the same concept from my escalator. A piston pushes the item up, then that piston pushes it over onto that piston, which pushes it up. That piston pushes it over onto that piston, so on and so forth till you reach the top. It's pretty efficient. It works decently well, as you can see. All the items eventually make their way to the top. There were a lot of problems when figuring this out. I did a lot of tweaking. It took a long time. The benefits of using this design is that it's very compact, it's cool looking, and it works as intended. It delivers your items upwards vertically. The cons are that it's very noisy, it's pretty expensive, it's kind of hard to design, get perfect. And this timer breaks if you log out while it's on. That's another problem. That's just it's a bug from beta. It's hard to avoid. But the biggest con of all is that when I take off how many items and my single player commands mods, this stops working. For some reason, there's some quality of life mods or tweaks inside these two mods that allow me to build this, and it stops working. It still works, but it has a much lower success rate. Items start to get stuck in these upwards facing pistons for an extended period of time, maybe long enough for them to die and not make it up to where they're supposed to. So I want to avoid that, and I spent several more hours trying to find a better design. And I came up with this, and it's ridiculous because it's pretty simple. It just replaces the upwards facing pistons with sticky pistons and blocks. It doesn't have the problem of the items getting stuck at the piston head if it's being pushed upwards by a block. And it works pretty much the same way, but it's ran by a minecart. So if you log out of the game and log back in while this is still running, it will not break. The minecart keeps its momentum. The biggest issue you'll have is if the minecart stops on the detector rail, which powers the machine. It'll actually disable this torch upon relogging for several seconds, but it will go back to normal if you just give it a little bit of time. So let me flip it on. It's the same concept. The thing is that now it requires slime balls, more blocks, and slightly more trapdoors, as well as a minecart and things like that. But you can walk very far away and load this, it'll all work, it won't break. That's an advantage it has over modern designs. And as you can see, they all made it to the top. Let's watch this in real time. Oop, I missed. Oh, I missed again. It gets pushed very fast. So I tested this without these 2 mods on. I tested it with no mods, completely vanilla. This works 100% of the time, all the time. It's very efficient, time-wise, but it is expensive. Now, I thought I was done after that, but I went onto YouTube. I put a before 2012 tag and typed in Minecraft item elevator because I wanted to see what other people were coming up with back in the day, and surprisingly, nothing much. The designs that I found from back then weren't very well done. Even the designs made today are kind of sloppy or just large, you know, nothing really complex and compact. Just maybe pushing items vertically every once in a while up an item stream, which is something some people do, and that works fine, but it's slow. This goes straight vertical, and it works pretty well. But I did find one concept that wasn't utilized particularly well, but it was much cheaper, and it's this design here. Now this is quite the behemoth, and it's really hard to put a tutorial for this since it's so situational. But I'm going to start this machine up and you'll see exactly how this works here. It's actually remarkably simple. Now, as you can see, these items are actually being pushed onto the slabs and then just going upwards. And the water pushes them all the way onto the slabs. They're not hanging off. It's actually quite perfect. These will slowly make their way up until you reach an AFK spot. So let's say that your AFK spot is, I don't know, right here. Eventually the items will come up here and they'll be fed into your inventory. And it works very well. It could be faster if I put in a little bit more circuitry. But this is just for demonstration purposes. It's a little bit sloppy. The thing is that it's really hard to tell people how to build this because a piston can only push 12 blocks. After that, I have to accommodate for it by pushing it over by 1 and continuing. So you'd have to divide the amount that you want it to rise vertically by 12, and then kind of build it in modules of 12 like so, and then your last amount will just be whatever's left, right? That's really hard to write a tutorial for. It's really hard to make a consistent device that powers the whole thing. It's just not practical. It's not practical to build. It's a little convoluted. Obviously this isn't 4x4. I don't think I could get it 4x4. I think that's pretty much impossible. Don't get me wrong, a big plus of this thing is that it's significantly cheaper than the other design. It has a chance of breaking if you unload it. It's possible that these blocks can be pushed out of order. Also, it's just kind of hard to manage these redstone lines. But it is more efficient, and it can be made to be quicker. Another con, though, is that what if you don't want it to take it directly to the player? What if you can't fit it at your AFK spot? What if you want it to go into another item stream that leads somewhere else? This can't do that. Once the items are on the slabs, they can't be pushed off. If it was a full block, they could be. But since it's a slab, no. It's impossible. I believe me, I've tested it. I have not found a single way to make that work. It's just a feature. So I came up with another design. This one is slightly different. And this one has been made a little bit more efficient, but this one could be made just as efficient. Start this sucker up and I'll show you how it works. It's the same concept of a blockchain here. So, when these blocks shift upwards, they become transparent for a half second. And that allows these blocks to start hitching a ride just slightly on the blocks that are transparent, like these glass blocks. So they ride all the way up here, and then when they hit this other block, They shoot out. Right now, this is kind of a Sisyphus machine, because it's just going to keep going to demonstrate my point. But yeah, it's a really cool concept. They just keep hitching a ride, and then when they're crushed in another block, they shoot out into another stream here, and they can go wherever you want them to go. So it does kick them off like it should. It's also pretty fun to watch. The thing is, these designs, they're hard to manage, sometimes unreliable, and there's another big issue with this. So when I tried to apply the same concept to this machine as I did to this to make it go up further, it doesn't work. Let's simulate this machine working really quickly. I'm going to throw an item on here, I'm going to place a block over it, and then we're going to run it a few times. So as you can see, it's actually riding on top of this block. It's inside of this block. When this gets pushed upwards, it'll push that block and that item over onto the piston head. It won't be riding this block anymore. That's where we run into the issue. Because when it goes to push it up, it just falls through because this piston head retracts. It doesn't matter if you use a sticky piston and a block to push it. It doesn't matter if this is alternating solid and transparent blocks. That happens every time. There's no way around it. So you can't really make this nice sleek design where it's just controlled by a single torch tower and it just goes up continuously. You can't do that with this concept, unfortunately. You can do it with that concept, but with that concept, it can't unload into a water stream. So if you wanted to have it unload into a water stream eventually, then you'd have to use this design over and over, except it would shoot out into a water stream that would lead into another, and so on and so forth. And it would be more expensive, it would be more compressed. Your water stream has to just be slightly below the top that it can go. It's just kind of a crappy situation. So it turns out that this design is the most reliable 100% of the time to do what you need it to do. It's also faster than that, I believe. So that's the conundrum here. It's really specific to your needs. I mean, what do you want? Do you want something cheap? Do you want something very tall? Do you want something very short? Do you want it to go into another item stream? Do you want it to go right to your FK spot? What are you willing to spend? How much time are you willing to spend on it? How complicated of a task can you complete based off of a YouTube tutorial? This design, and this design all work to some degree. They just work in different ways and they're suited to different situations. I wanted to make a tutorial on an item elevator, but at this point, I'm not really sure what to do. All these designs have their pros and their cons. So I guess I'll just ask you guys, would you like to see a tutorial on any of these designs here? This one is the best it can be. These ones definitely could be improved, but it just depends. I just wanted to show them all off to let you know what I had been working on, but I have several working designs, and I may drop a tutorial on one or two of them. Maybe. Anyway, enough ranting for today. This has been Monster. I hope you found this interesting. Leave a comment, talk about it. If you have any ideas for me to try out, I'd love to hear them. And have a nice day, guys.